Remorse and defence that the victims were lying makes his crimes all the more indefensible.
Gad attacked two girls aged 12 and 13 after inviting them backstage to his dressing room. He'll be sentenced later this month.
People travelling by bus in London are likely to face disruption again this evening as a strike continues by bus workers over pay disparities. The Unite union says the walkout has been solidly supported, but Transport for London says nearly half of services are running. Leon Daniels from TfL has told LBC it's unrealistic to expect drivers across all 18 bus companies to receive the same rate of pay.
If there was one pay rate in London for bus drivers, the average, then half the bus drivers on strike today will be taking a pay cut because, of course, in order for everybody to be paid the average, then the people at the top would be paid less. I've never known anybody go on strike to have less money.
French President François Hollande and German Chancellor Angela Merkel have arrived in Ukraine to try and broker a new peace deal. More than 5,000 people have died in the conflict in the east of the country since last April. Moscow denies arming the pro-Russian separatists. US Secretary of State John Kerry is also in Kiev for talks and has called for an immediate ceasefire.
This is not meant to be, nor should it be, a divide between East and West. This is about rule of law. It's about the norms by which nation states behave. It's about the fundamental respect for the integrity of the sovereignty of Ukraine.
A man's been charged with raping a woman in northwest London in 1984. Billy Roy Day is accused of 3 sexual offences relating to the alleged attack in Hendon. The 48-year-old from Uxbridge is due in court later this month. The Deputy Prime Minister's dismissed Conservative plans to clear the deficit as implausible and undeliverable. Nick Clegg has set out Liberal Democrat proposals to bring the debt down, which include £8 billion worth of tax rises. Speaking to LBC, he's also criticised Labour's ideas for deficit reduction if they're in power after the election.
The Labour Party still sticks its head in the sand, doesn't want to deal with the deficit on time over the next few years, wants to sort of drag out the whole task of dealing with the deficit. That means more years of kind of spending restraint and higher borrowing costs, which is not very fair for our kids.
The boss of Twitter says he's ashamed at his company's record of dealing with abusive trolls. Chief Executive Dick Costello made the comments in an internal memo, which has been leaked to a technology website. He says he takes full responsibility for not being more aggressive on the issue. The FTSE 100 has closed up 5 points at 68.65, and LBC weather, a mostly dry and cold night for London and the southeast, but some snow possible too, lows of 0. Wintry showers moving west across southern parts of the UK with a frost, cloudier with light rain further north. Tomorrow, cloudy with patchy showers in northern and eastern parts, dry with sunny spells in the south and west, and highs of 5 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Simon Conway.
I'm Natalie Bailey in the LBC Travel Centre. In London, a 24-hour bus strike continues to cause disruption. At the moment, around half of all services are running either a full or a reduced service. You can find full details at lbc.co.uk. And South West trains have delays of an hour for services coming out of Waterloo as the line through Guildford is currently blocked for a police investigation. There's a replacement taxi service operating at the moment between Guildford and Effingham Junction, but South West trains have just tweeted that the line is expected to reopen soon. Buses are replacing Chiltern Railways and cross-country services between Leamington Spa and Banbury, adding an hour onto your journey. On the M25 in Hertfordshire, anti-clockwise traffic is slow from junctions 25 to 24. The A10 to Potters Bar past an accident that's blocking the inside lane. And the M40 in Buckinghamshire is queuing northbound from junction 1 at the Denham roundabout up towards the M25 after an accident there that's been cleared. In East Sussex, the A21 has been closed both ways between Crazy Lane and the A28 because of a bad accident. There's very slow-moving traffic on all surrounding routes. And on Merseyside, the westbound M62 is queuing from junction 8 at Burtonwood Road up towards junction 6 at Tarbock Island. Keeping you moving, your next travel update is in 15 minutes.
LBC Travel.
With Go2 Meeting. Arrive on time, even when the trains don't.
Hello and welcome aboard your East Coast train. Calling at smoked salmon and dill sandwich, chicken tikka masala, Emmental and mushroom croque, and finally stopping at Spanish Cabernet Sauvignon.
With a new complimentary food and drink menu on East Coast trains for first-class travellers and the food bar in Standard, we're pulling out all the stops to make you feel at home. So next time you need to travel, why not try it the East Coast Trains way? Book today at eastcoast.co.uk.
This is LBC, leading Britain's conversation with Iain Dale at Drive. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. Iain Dale at Drive on LBC.
Hello, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us here on LBC. I'm Iain Dale at Drive, leading Britain's conversation every weekday between 4 and 8. You can watch us on our website for the next hour. Go to lbc.co.uk. We have Michael Gove, the government chief whip, with us. There was a time when you would hear not a word from a government chief whip. They were these shadowy people who stayed in the background and didn't come on television, didn't go on radio. How times have changed. This is the first time a government chief whip has ever done an hour-long radio phone-in. So Michael Gove and LBC is about to make a little bit of broadcasting history, or at least I like to think so. Well, Michael Gove, welcome to the show. What are you expecting over the next hour?
Well, I'm looking forward to a wide range of questions. I'm sure that some of them will inevitably be sort of generated by the news stories of today, and I'm sure there are some people who want to sound off in advance of the election about some of the things they wish the government had done that we haven't yet had time to.
Sound off? I'm surely not. 0345 6060 973. That is the number if you'd like to speak to the government chief whip, Michael Gove. Of course, he used to be Education Secretary. He's been spent about 4.5 years in that job. He's now got the task of keeping all Conservative MPs in line right up until the next election. 0345 6060 973. Let's go straight on with the calls. Evelyn is in Croydon. Hello, Evelyn.
Hello, Iain, and
Hi.
hello to Mr. Gove. Mr. Gove, I'd like to ask you, who do you think is worse, Saddam Hussein or ISIL?
Hi, Evelyn. I think ISIL are worse. I think that we mustn't forget that Saddam Hussein was a butcher. There was a phrase that was once used of Iraq when Saddam Hussein was in charge, which was that it was a torture chamber above ground and a mass grave below. And he was responsible for some horrific crimes. But I don't think that even he, at his most evil, could have contemplated doing what ISIL did to that brave Jordanian pilot in the most horrific act, I think, that any of us can remember being perpetrated by a terrorist group on a single individual.
I can remember you writing a book which was called Celsius something or other, wasn't it?
7-7.
That was one. And you have been a big advocate of military action against regimes like Saddam Hussein's. Now, if we went into, we put ground troops into Iraq to get rid of Saddam Hussein, and you say that ISIL are far worse than he was, isn't the logic that we should actually do rather more than we're doing at the moment to beat ISIL? The Defence Select Committee seemed to point that out in their report today.
Well, I think that there should be ground troops that are deployed against ISIL, and there are ground troops, and there are Iraqi ground troops and Kurdish ground troops. I think that one of the lessons that we can learn from the Iraq War is that simply inserting Western armies and believing that on its own that will transform things for the better can, with the benefit of hindsight, be naive. What we need to do is to be there to support the democratic government in Iraq and the democratic forces in Kurdistan, and indeed the government in Jordan, to deal with this threat on their borders.
But the Iraqi government actually asked us to help provide air cover. They asked the Americans to. We've done that. If in the future they said to the British government and other governments, look, we do need your help on the ground, we can't do this on our own, is that something that a British government could ever contemplate doing?
Well, I think no British government would ever want to rule anything out when it came to deploying forces if it believed that it was in the national interest. But at the moment, that's not a request that anyone expects to come from the Iraqi government. We do provide support to the Kurdish government in order to make sure that the fighters they have are trained appropriately. And of course, our servicemen are in the air every night providing assistance.
But when you read in this Defence Select Committee report that there are only 3 UK military personnel outside the Kurdish regions of the country, compared with 400 Australians, 200 Italians, 300 Spanish, it's a bit pathetic, isn't it?
I don't think it's pathetic at all. I don't think anyone, either in Kurdistan or in Iraq, would say that Britain wasn't pulling its weight. And now, of course, we've got to review everything that we can do, but it's also the case that there are British forces deployed across the globe supporting democratic governments, and I know myself that the Iraqi government is grateful for the support that we're giving them.
Well, we've got an allied question on this from Che, who's in Enfield. Hello, Che. What's your question to Michael Gove?
Hi there, Iain. And I thought you was Mr. Gove, I think he was a good Minister of Education. They missed the trick letting you go there. But is the real...
He's nodding.
I've heard what you said there, but is the real reason that Britain is not military, like getting involved, is the fact that we really don't have the manpower or capacity to deal with it at this present time because of all the cuts that have been made. I'm thinking that's probably the real reason why we've only got 3 service people out there.
OK, so are we actually even equipped to deal with an increased threat from ISIS?
I think so. First of all, Chief, thank you very much for your very kind words. And secondly, you are right that we have had to look at the defence budget, but it's still the case that we've got an army of 82,000 people and that we're one of the countries in the world, not just with the highest quality defence forces, but also with the strongest in terms of numbers and in terms of equipment. So if we were called upon, we could do more. But I think it's also the case that most people in Britain will think that both in Iraq and in Afghanistan, that Britain has contributed certainly more than its fair share of manpower and equipment in order to deal with the threats that we and other countries faced there. And I think it's important, as Iain pointed out, that the 3 number doesn't cover everyone that's in Iraq and in Kurdistan, and of course elsewhere in the Middle East, making sure that we can deal with the terrorist threat.
We hear a lot of talk about ring-fencing particular budgets after the election, and the Prime Minister said he wants to ring-fence the schools budget. But there are a lot of Conservatives think the defence budget should be ring-fenced because we hear that the MOD are looking seriously at plans to reduce the number of the army from 82,000 to 60,000. Now, David Cameron said, "Not while I'm Prime Minister."
Yes.
But they've got to make cuts somewhere because not every government department can be ring-fenced.
No, there will have to be cuts in all sorts of government departments. Even the Department for Education, even though the schools budget is ring-fenced, there are other budgets that will be reviewed for more efficiency savings. As far as defence goes, the Prime Minister said that defence equipment, investment in new defence equipment, that's going to be ring-fenced, so our troops have absolutely the best kit. And also the army won't go below 82,000 in terms of its strength, which means that we'll still have one of the largest and most professional armies in the world.
I've got a question here from Eve, who is in where is Eve? She is in Purley. She says, Boris Johnson is off to America. He's been to Kurdistan. He's been to China and India. Is he training to be Foreign Secretary or even perish the thought PM?
I wouldn't say perish the thought. I think Boris is a fantastic mayor, and part of the job of being mayor is to sell London abroad. He's in Paris today, making sure that we can strengthen the cultural links. Both Paris and London are the 2 major destinations in Europe for visitors from outside the EU. And I think it's right that he should reinforce those links. He was in Indonesia, making sure that there was investment in British business. And he's been in, as you point out, in Kurdistan, seeing for himself the contribution that British armed forces, including men and women from London, are making. I think he's a fantastic mayor, and I hope that when he's elected to the House of Commons, that we'll see him in a succession of frontline roles in the future.
What do you think his ideal role would be?
I don't know. Unfortunately, it's
I'm
not
sure
my...
you have your views. You are Chief Whip. You are in charge of government appointments.
Well, I think obviously...
Albeit junior minister.
Obviously, I'd like to see Boris in a top job as soon as possible, but if he wanted to spend a little bit of time in the Whip's office helping out, then we'd be delighted to have him there.
But so you'd like to see him in the Whip's office? I can't imagine a more incompetent Whip than Boris Johnson.
I think you're misunderestimating Boris, if I may say so. I think Boris would be... I think he's been successful in every job he's ever done. So
he wasn't a very good shadow arts minister, was he?
I thought he was. I thought he was a very good shadow arts minister and a very good shadow higher education spokesman. And he laid the foundation stone for some of the reforms that we brought in, which have increased access to higher education. I think the thing with Boris is that because of his personality, because it's attractive, because he wonderfully gives the impression that he's never taking anything too seriously, people underestimate the fact that he is actually one of the smartest people in British public life, one of the most intelligent, one of the most thoughtful. You know him, you've had the chance to talk to him in the past, Iain, and you will know that he's sharp as a tack.
But I don't know what job he would be capable of doing. I mean, you say top job in government, which normally means Foreign Secretary, Home Secretary, Chancellor of the Exchequer. Can't see him as Chancellor of the Exchequer, if I'm honest. I don't know if you'd disagree with that, but...
I think that he could do any job, and I think one of the critical things to remember is that when Boris was running for mayor, the Labour line on Boris was, the administration of London will fall apart, he's a clownish figure. The truth was that over the last 6 years, Boris has been an outstanding mayor, that London has been growing as never before, its global reputation has never been higher, and the sort of gritty changes that needed to be made to planning in order to drive through additional housing, to make sure that the Barclays bike system worked. All of these have been decisions taken on Boris's watch, and he's done the right thing.
And is it safe to say that you would prefer him as the next Tory leader over Theresa May?
No, I prefer David Cameron as the next Tory leader.
Well, he is. No, that doesn't work because he's the current Tory leader.
I'd like him to carry on for as long as possible.
Well, he's been Tory leader, for 8 years now, nearly. So, I mean, he's reaching the natural end of his political shelf life, some would say. I mean, you wouldn't normally go on for much longer than that. So it's natural that people are starting to think about the future, isn't it?
Absolutely. But as far as I'm concerned, the choice that I'm focused on is not who might lead the Conservative Party in the future, but who could lead the country at the next general election. So it's David Cameron versus Ed Miliband. I think that is a no-brainer, and I hope that we'll have David Cameron leading the country for many years to come.
Well, I failed in my quest to get you to open up on that one, but maybe our listeners might be more successful than me over the next 45 minutes or so. 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. This is LBC at 16 minutes past 5. News headlines with Simon Conway.
The former singer Gary Glitter has been found guilty of a series of historic sex offences against 3 young girls, including attempted rape and having sex with an under 13. Chief Whip Michael Gove has told LBC Britain is playing its part in the fight against IS after a group of MPs suggested otherwise. And commuters in London are facing more disruption this evening as a 24-hour strike by bus workers continues in a row over pay differences. This is LBC. Your travel news is next.
Right now at Morrison's, you can pick up a range of fantastic 1-litre spirits for just £16 each, like Bell's, Smirnoff, Gordon's and Bacardi. £16? Make mine a G&T.
Selected stores while stocks last. Was £18 to £19.99. Max 3. Ends 15th of February. Please drink responsibly.
I'm Natalie Bailey in the LBC Travel Centre. In London, the 24-hour bus strike continues to cause disruption. At the moment, about half of all services are running either a full or a reduced service. You can find more information on our website at lbc.co.uk. And in London, on the A13 eastbound, there are queues from the Prince Regent Lane junction up towards the Lodge Avenue flyover. There are also delays on the southbound North Circular from the Barking flyover. And in Hertfordshire, the M25's queuing anti-clockwise from junctions 25 to 24. That's the A10 towards Potters Bar because of an accident in the inside lane. The A21 in East Sussex is closed in both directions between Crazy Lane and the A28 because of a bad accident there. There are really long delays on all of the surrounding routes. And on Merseyside, there are queues on the westbound M62 between Junction 8 at Burton Wood Road and Junction 6 at Tarbock Island. That's following an accident. On the M4 in Wales, only the inside lane is open westbound between Junction 32 at the Corryton interchange and Junction 33 at the turnoff for Cardiff West. It's because of a bad accident and there are queues for traffic going past. Keeping you moving, your next travel update is in 15 minutes.
LBC Travel.
With Go-To Meeting. Strikes, delays, you'll not be late for this meeting.
Academy Award nominated for Best Picture.
Those that have gone before us say no more.
Selma is a truly great film. Oyelowo is electrifying as Martin Luther King. 5 stars, says the Daily Telegraph.
What happens when a man stands up, says enough is enough?
It's outstanding, says the Times. The best film of the year. Selma, in cinemas February 6th.
£365. The kind of money that once bought you what you always wanted. The freedom of your first bike. That unforgettable 21st birthday party. Your first holiday away with friends. Moments that always stay with you. Today, that £365 gives you another moment you'll never forget. Driving away in your new Mercedes-Benz E-Class AMG line. For just a £365 advance payment and $365 a month. Search E-Class. Business users only. E220 BlueTech AMG Line Saloon 36-month contract hire. All payments exclude VAT at 20%. Conditions apply. Credit approvals by March 31st. 10,000 miles per annum. Mercedes-Benz Finance.
Teaser rates on savings accounts. There's only ever 2 ways it can go. Either you remember when the bank told you the introductory rate would end and play the system to your advantage, or you forget. Your bank takes away the lovely, shiny interest rate that tempted you in and gives you a new one instead, leaving you worse off. You both want to win, but only one of you can. It's why at NatWest we've said goodbye to teaser rates on savings accounts and hello to rates that won't try to catch you out. Goodbye unfair banking. Hello NatWest. Search Fairer NatWest for more information. UK mainland personal customers only.
Have you heard about invisible hearing aids? Well, you certainly won't have seen them. Boots invisible hearing aids are so small they won't be noticed, giving you the confidence to get on with every day. And now there's a third off. So pop into your local Boots or book a hearing check online today. Boots. Let's feel good. Selected hearing aids only. Terms and conditions apply. See in-store for details. Offer ends 31st of March 2015.
Right now at Homebase, there's an extra 20% off all Karcher products on top of existing offers, like the K2 Compact Pressure Washer, now just $71.99. Homebase.
118434, the handy number for handy numbers.
Calls cost 76 pence, plus £1.53 per minute from a BT landline. Other networks vary, and mobiles cost considerably more.
Iain Dale at Drive on LBC.
21 minutes past 5 here on LBC. If you'd like to watch us on the website, you can do so. Go to lbc.co.uk, follow the link. Michael Gove is here with me until 6. He's the Government Chief Whip, former Secretary of State for Education. Right, let's carry on with your calls. John's in Croydon. Hi, John. What's your question?
Yeah, good evening. Good evening, Mr. Gove. You've been in coalition now for the best part of 5 years, but currently you appear to be trying to claim all the good bits with the Conservatives and all the bad bits with the Lib Dems. What is your opinion of the Lib Dems?
Pin your ears back.
Well, I've got mixed feelings about the Lib Dems. I wouldn't say that I would claim all the good things for the Conservatives and all the bad things for the Lib Dems, but I do think that the big changes that have put this country into a stronger position over the course of the last 5 years have been driven by Conservative ministers. But I will say one thing. Nick Clegg took a risk that he didn't need to take in entering coalition right at the beginning of this Parliament. He did so because he thought that we needed a stable government in order to be able to deal with the deficit. And throughout most of this Parliament, when we've had to take pretty tough decisions about the public finances, after some wibbling and wobbling, Nick Clegg and Danny Alexander have been pretty solid in ensuring that those tough decisions have been made on public spending. So for that, even though there are other things I might take issue with them on, I'm very happy to give them praise.
You've been working with David Laws for a couple of years when he was schools minister, and I said to him when he came on the programme the other day that I always saw you and he as sort of slightly ideological soulmates, which he spluttered a bit about. But I mean, when you're working with the Lib Dem in your department, how is that? I mean, was it a constant source of conflict, or did you actually work well together?
It wasn't a constant source of conflict. No, there were some things we did disagree about, but he's a basically nice guy. I also worked with Sarah Tether in the department, and she is she was an absolute pleasure to work with. The sort of gulf in views between Sarah and mine is probably bigger than the gulf of views between mine and David's. But David was a colleague of mine during a period as we got closer to a general election, and when naturally he might want to emphasise those points of difference that existed.
Well, he's doing that at the moment, isn't he? Because I've got a document in front of me called The Gove Files, How the Liberal Democrats Improved Education. They've got 8 points. Things we stopped Michael Gove from doing. Things we did despite Michael Gove. Things Michael Gove did stop against our will. Things we tried to stop and would reverse. They're not great fans, are they?
Well, I read the Gove Files, and I have to say it was the most enjoyable work of fiction I've read since the Booker Prize-winning novel last year. It is, it's understandable that Liberal Democrats, because they're in a tough position in the polls, will want to try and draw attention to themselves and present themselves as doughty resistance fighters against the wicked Tories. The truth is that we work very well together. For most of the time that we've been in government. And there are one or two things in that document which are plain wrong and which I think are a slightly sad attempt by the Lib Dems to try to repaint history.
What did they stop you doing?
There were a couple of things to do with exam reform that they stopped us doing. There were a couple of things to do with curriculum reform that they stopped us doing. But most of what we needed to do, we did. And to be honest, there were one or two things that they claim that they stopped us doing that we never had any intention of doing in the first place. There's a particular claim in the document that we wanted, for example, to have profit-making schools. Actually, the people who wanted profit-making schools were some Liberal Democrats. There's a guy called Julian Astle, very intelligent chap, who's Nick Clegg's sort of main policy thinker, his brain. Julian wrote an article in the Financial Times calling for profit-making schools at a time when I was saying I didn't think this was a good idea or practical.
Now, I don't know if you've seen the poll that Survation have done in Nick Clegg's Clegg's constituency, they predict that Labour will win by 10 points. Would you like to see Nick Clegg lose his seat?
No. I think that...
Hang on, he's a Liberal Democrat. You're a Conservative. Of course you should.
Yeah, no. I think the interesting thing there... Well, two things. I wouldn't like to see him lose his seat in the sense that I wouldn't take any pleasure or joy because, as I say, I think he took a brave decision to enter government. Now, my advice to anyone in Sheffield Hallam is to vote Conservative, because according to the poll that you mentioned, Labour are on 33, the Liberal Democrats are on 23, the Conservatives are on 22. It seems to me that if enough Liberal Democrat voters, there's clearly an anti-Labour majority there, now back the Conservatives can win it. It's been a Conservative seat in the past. But I say that as a Conservative, and I say that on the same basis that, Nick Clegg would urge people to vote Liberal Democrat in any seat where a Conservative was standing.
Further proof that some people say you're far too nice for your own good.
I don't know about that.
Others wouldn't say that, it has to be said. But let's go to Ian in Watford. Hello, Ian.
Good evening. I don't think I'm going to get a particularly interesting response, but it's...
Well, why are you bothering to ask the question, then?
Well, it's always interesting. It's always interesting to see what
it's worth a try, isn't it?
Go on, have a go.
In the sense that if this is going to be a very tight election, what would the Conservatives be prepared to concede to one of the smaller parties like UKIP to sustain a governmental position?
Okay.
Well, now, don't give the usual answer. We're aiming for a majority. We can't, of course, talk about coalitions, because you're better than that, aren't
you? You've read my mind.
Yeah.
No, everyone has to hope that they're going to get a majority, and it's possible, more than possible, that given the way the polls are going, that the Conservatives could have quite a healthy majority as well. But Ian...
He's laughing.
Well, Ian, all I would say is that it's very rare that a governing party has taken the tough decisions that we have and then been ahead in the polls at this stage before the general election. So we're in a strong position. As for giving anything, well, if there were negotiations afterwards, then, as we've seen from the negotiations that occurred in order to set up a coalition in this Parliament, we go in trying to make sure that we can implement as many Conservative policies in as vigorous a way as possible. So, in a way, even though you, Ian, quite rightly displayed a degree of cynicism in saying that I probably wouldn't answer the question, I don't think I can answer the question because it's a hypothetical situation and I don't know what the disposition of forces will be after the general election, but I'm fighting in order to make sure that we can have a Conservative government. And I want to make Conservative arguments, because if I make arguments for Conservative ideas, it's more likely we'll have Conservative government and Conservative MPs implementing.
But you could say to the electorate before the election, look, we understand that a coalition, we know it's happened this time, it could happen next time. And if that happened, these are the three things that in any coalition negotiations are our red lines. These are the three things that we are not going to give up, come what may. European referendum. I don't know what the other two would be.
Well, I think we're certainly going to have a European referendum of David Cameron as Prime Minister, but more than that, why limit ourselves to three? I think the argument that I would make is that the more people who vote Conservative, the more Conservative policies can be implemented. More than that, I actually think the case for a majority government isn't just built on how important it is to have Conservatives enjoying a majority. It's built on the case that voting for any party other than the Conservatives risks not having David Cameron as Prime Minister. There are some people who will think, I can vote Lib Dem or UKIP or whatever, Green, to send a message. But David Cameron's so clearly better than Ed Miliband, he's bound to be Prime Minister. That is not the case. If you risk voting for any party other than the Conservatives in the seat where you live, you risk losing a Conservative potential member of Parliament and making it more likely that Ed Miliband is in Downing Street.
But assuming UKIP get a few MPs, you could conceive, in the circumstances of a hung Parliament, you could conceive of talking to them.
I talk to UKIP MPs anyway at the moment, but what I do believe we should do is...
negotiating.
No, what we want to have is a Conservative government. We want David Cameron as Prime Minister, and we don't want to get into post-election deals. We want to get into implementing 5 years of reform to make sure that the work that we've done to safeguard our economic recovery can be secured.
What do you think UKIP represents? Because there was a time when David Cameron was in this very building and told Nick Ferrari that he thought they were a bunch of loons, fruitcakes and closet racists. Is that something that you would go along with?
No, I know people who have joined UKIP and who have voted for UKIP, whom I like in the same way as there are individual Liberal Democrats, we've just been touching on it, whom I like. Indeed, Labour MPs, if you wanted to ask me, whom I like. I don't think it's helpful to put a badge on an entire party or people.
Who do UKIP represent?
It's ideas.
Who do they represent?
Well, they represent a significant range of people who voted for them for a variety of different reasons. I can speculate on some of those reasons, but my particular concern in the run-up to the election is to say to people who have voted UKIP, many of them for entirely honourable reasons, that you risk having Ed Miliband as Prime Minister if you carry on voting for UKIP at this election. Is that what you want?
It's a very negative... It's like Labour is saying in Scotland, vote SNP, get David Cameron. I mean, this isn't really a very positive thing to say, is it? Let's just get
there are plenty of positive reasons, including the fact that only the Conservatives will give you an in-out referendum, which I could list. But I think that in any election campaign, you've got to stress the risks of the Conservatives not winning as well as the benefits of the winning.
Let's get a quick response from Iain. Iain, were you in any way satisfied by what Michael Gove told you?
It was very close to what I expected, but actually the one little question I would just as an add-on would be, if by chance the Conservatives got in with another coalition, would that mean that Mr Cameron could then get out of doing the referendum?
There's no way that we'll be anything other than committed to making sure there's a referendum.
So that is a red line?
We are absolutely going to deliver a referendum. Absolutely. 100%. No ifs, no buts.
Even in
That's
a coalition?
If David Cameron is Prime Minister, and I'm going to do everything I can to ensure that he is, we're going to have a referendum by the end of 2017.
Well, we'll have a bit more on that after the news and travel. Michael Gove is here with me until 6 o'clock. Lots of you wanting to speak to him. 0345 6060 973. I'm Iain Dale at Drive. LBC News Time. It's 5:32. It's Simon Conway with the news headlines.
Met Police say an 85-year-old man has been interviewed as part of Operation U-Tree, which was set up following the Jimmy Savile scandal. He's been questioned under caution in connection with allegations of sexual offences. Gary Glitter has been found guilty of a series of historic sexual offences against young girls. The former singer, whose real name is Paul Gadd, denied the charges, which dated back to the 1970s and 80s. The Chief Whip Michael Gove has told LBC he thinks Boris Johnson could do any top job in government. The London Mayor is standing for Parliament in the Uxbridge and South Ruislip seat. Michael Gove says he's one of the smartest people in British public life.
I think that he could do any job, and I think one of the critical things to remember is that when Boris was running for mayor, the Labour line on Boris was, the administration of London will fall apart, he's a clownish figure. The truth was that over the last sort of 6 years, Boris has been an outstanding mayor.
The boss of Twitter has admitted the company sucks at dealing with online trolls. Dick Costello made the comments in a leaked internal memo in which he warns the failures are costing the site users. LBC weather, a mostly dry and cold night for London and the southeast, but some snow possible, lows of 0. Wintry showers moving west across southern parts of the UK with a frost. Cloudier with light rain further north. Tomorrow, cloudy with patchy showers in northern and eastern parts. Dry with sunny spells in the south and west, and highs of 5 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Simon Conway.
I'm Natalie Bailey in the LBC Travel Centre. In London, the 24-hour bus strike continues to cause disruption, as you've been hearing. At the moment, around half of all services are running either a reduced service or a full service. You can find more details on our website at lbc.co.uk. And in London, on the south side of the Blackwall Tunnel, southbound traffic is queuing from Blackwall Lane down towards the Sun in the Sands roundabout because of a broken-down car. There are also queues in London in Croydon on the A23 Purley Way on both approaches to Five Ways Corner, where police are still directing traffic as the lights aren't working. And in Hertfordshire on the M25 anti-clockwise, traffic's queuing from junction 25 at the A10 round towards junction 25 at Potters Bar after an accident. In East Sussex in Sedlescombe, the A21 is shut both ways between Crazy Lane and the A28 because of a bad accident. Traffic's very slow moving on all the surrounding routes. And an accident at Newmark in Suffolk means long delays on the eastbound A13 between Stoke-on-Quye and the Ely turn-off. In Wales, the M4 has westbound delays between junction 30 at Cardiff Gate and junction 33 at Cardiff West. And on Merseyside, the westbound M62 is very slow from junction 8 at Burtonwood Road up towards junction 6 at Tarbock Island. Keeping you moving. Your next travel update is in 15 minutes.
LBC Travel.
With Go-To Meeting. Leave travel behind and stay ahead of the game.
3, 2... When I was a cat, my paws were firmly on the ground. But now I'm a dog, I'm going places.
We have liftoff. your phone with loads of data in Rocket Speed 4G on an O2 SIM-only deal and get 2 months free on selected tariffs. Be more dog. Search O2 SIM-only.
Tariff price subject to RPI, terms, data costs and 12-month contract apply. Check o2.co.uk.
£365. The kind of money that once bought you what you always wanted. The freedom of your first bike. That unforgettable 21st birthday party. Your first holiday away with friends. Moments that always stay with you. Today, that £365 gives you another moment you'll never forget. Driving away in your new Mercedes-Benz E-Class AMG line. For just a £365 advance payment and $365 a month. Search E-Class. Business users only. E220 BlueTech AMG Line Saloon 36-month contract hire. All payments exclude VAT at 20%. Conditions apply. Credit approvals by March 31st. 10,000 miles per annum. Mercedes-Benz Finance.
Teaser rates on savings accounts. There's only ever two ways it can go. Either you remember when the bank told you the introductory rate would end and play the system to your advantage, or you forget. Your bank takes away the lovely, shiny interest rate that tempted you in and gives you a new one instead, leaving you worse off. You both want to win, but only one of you can. It's why at NatWest we've said goodbye to teaser rates on savings accounts and hello to rates that won't try to catch you out. Goodbye unfair banking. Hello NatWest. Search Fairer NatWest for more information. UK mainland personal customers only.
118434, the handy number for handy numbers.
Calls cost 76 pence plus £1.53 per minute from a BT landline. Other networks vary and mobiles cost considerably more.
The wheels on the bus don't go round and round, round and round, round and round. The wheels on the bus don't go round and round all day long.
If your commute is driving you round the bend, try video meetings using Citrix GoToMeeting to meet colleagues face-to-face from home. You'll save time, money and your sanity. Start your free 30-day trial now. Visit gotomeeting.co.uk.
The people on the bus are now late for work. Late for work.
Iain Dale at Drive on LBC.
5:37 here on LBC. Michael Gove, the Government Chief Whip, is here taking your calls. 0345 6060 973. Now, I have to ask you, one of the big questions of the day is what happened in that Cabinet meeting when your ringtone went off? You must have wanted to crawl under the table.
I certainly did. Completely red-faced. I could actually feel my face growing beetroot red and the heat generating from it.
What happened?
Well, actually, it's a complicated explanation. My wife bought me for Christmas a new present, a Pebble smartwatch.
Right. Hold it up to the camera.
Now, the purpose of the Pebble smartwatch, as well as being a smartwatch, is that instead of looking at my mobile phone in Cabinet, if an urgent message comes in, MP, whatever, because I've got to sort of, keep abreast of the parliamentary party. What you can do with the smartwatch is that you can press the notifications bit here, and that tells you what your latest email is. So, Con Whips, we're now on the adjournment. That means Parliament's finished for today. But unfortunately, and I had an
MP found in bed with someone who isn't his wife, that sort of thing. That's the kind of message you get on there.
That could come through, but it no longer does, obviously.
Right, okay, obviously, yeah.
Things have changed.
Yes.
Anyway, I pressed the wrong button, because just above the notifications button is the music button.
Right.
And that meant that the Bluetooth connection between this watch and my phone here went off, and the track, which was on my phone, started playing.
Right.
And because I didn't know what was going on, you can tell it's a complex explanation.
It must be somebody else.
Well, I had no idea. I knew it was my phone, but I thought, why is this? I haven't done anything. So I had to fiddle with it incompetently for, it could only have been about 15 seconds, but it felt like an eternity, during which everyone was looking at me with that sort of, what a plonker, look on their face.
Words to that effect.
Oh, words to that effect. So eventually I managed to stop it.
And was that a moment when you thought, thank God David Cameron's Prime Minister and it isn't Margaret Thatcher?
Yes.
And dare I ask, what was the song?
Well, I can't tell you what the song is, but it was
you were about to play it for us.
Well, it was Beyonce's latest album, which is called, thoughtfully, Beyonce.
Yeah.
So that you can. It includes "Drunken Love" among other tracks.
There are some interesting song titles here. Haunted.
Yes.
Pretty Hurts.
Yes.
Jealous.
Uh-huh.
Rocket.
Yes.
Flawless.
Yes.
Superpower.
Yes.
Blue.
Drunken Love.
You think it was Drunken Love?
I know. I can't say.
I thought you were going to play it for us.
I think the one I found was the wrong one. So.
Let down.
So the mystery will remain.
You actually don't know is the honest answer.
I think I know, but I can't be certain.
And you think it's Drunken Love? That's what you think it was?
I think it may be another one, but again, I better not go there because one of the things
you've gone in. Look,
it might be. I don't know. Sorry, I'm becoming Boris. I don't know.
It might be Drunken Love.
Might be. Yeah, it's definitely that album.
Are you a big Beyoncé fan?
I'm not a huge Beyoncé fan, no. I have to say
that. Why is it on your phone then?
Because almost all the music on my phone was downloaded either by Sarah, my wife, or by my children. Thinking that I should listen to it. It's like, having I don't know. It's like having a gifted DJ choose your tracks for you.
Okay, so who gave you the worst look around the cabinet table?
The PM.
But it was Theresa May.
No. I think... No, Theresa's quite chilled about it. The PM...
But you don't get on with her, do you?
No, I do.
Do you?
Yeah.
So all these rumours in the papers are complete rubbish?
I think almost every rumour in the paper about almost any politician is complete rubbish.
Right. Should we go to the calls?
Yes, please.
Get you out of this one
Thank
now.
you.
OK, let's go to David in Sutton. Hello, David.
Hello, good evening.
Hello. After all that frivolity, what would you like to ask?
Well, first of all, I hope his phone's off. All the talk of the coalitions puts me in mind that it's not beyond the bounds of possibility that after the next election, we could end up with a Labour SNP coalition running the place. Would you mind explaining what's being done about the West Lothian question, and will it be in place before the election is done?
It's a very good question. I think it would be terrible if we had a Labour SNP government. I think it would be, one of the worst possible outcomes of the election. We've put forward, William McHague, my colleagues, put forward an idea this week, which would enable English MPs to veto any tax rises that were imposed by Scottish MPs or any changes to the law that were imposed by Scottish MPs if England didn't want those changes. Now, we're going to try to ensure that we can get that change in place before the election, but that depends on whether or not the Liberal Democrats agree, because you can't introduce government legislation or government changes unless both parts of the government agree. So if the Lib Dems don't agree with our plan, then we'll say at the general election, if you vote for us, then we will make sure that we put that protection in and that Parliament works in a way which safeguards England's interests in the way that we've also safeguarded Scotland's interests by honouring the promise to the Scottish people called the vow that was made in the referendum.
There's only 2 months at Parliament sitting before the next election. I know when you leave here, you're going off to make a speech about the so-called zombie Parliament, because a lot of people think that, you've given MPs permission to go off and campaign in marginal seats on Tuesdays, I believe. Is that right?
Thursdays.
I thought it was Tuesdays. Maybe it's Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Well, MPs, if they want to, can always ask the Chief Whip if they can be absent for any reason, whether it's their partner's birthday
they're paid to be MPs while Parliament's sitting, and to actually say, well, actually, you can go and do political campaigning in marginal seats. Surely they should give the money back for those days, because they're not representing their constituents.
What you might call political campaigning is often... certainly it is the case in the Conservative Party, it's good constituency work. So you might say, Fred Smith is campaigning. I would see Fred Smith actually visiting the people he represents, making sure that their wishes are listened to, and then going back to Parliament and making sure that things are done.
I thought you were encouraging them to go and campaign in marginal seats, not necessarily their own.
Oh, no. What we do is we say that if you're an individual MP and you need time off because you have things that matter in your constituency, then come to us, and we often don't grant that time off. We often say, actually, there's important parliamentary business today. But on some days, we do say that the parliamentary business today is such that there may not be a vote. So if it's really important for you to be in your constituency, we can let you be there.
Alistair has a question on a subject close to your heart. Alistair, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Gove, as somebody who's been very interested in your policy and keenly watched it on free schools, I'm concerned what's currently happening. Now, given that Labour aren't keen on free schools, and the government now appears to be backpedalling on them also, where do you think free schools, the children of those schools, the parents and the governors should go to find allies currently?
Well, Alistair, I'm glad that you're a fan of free schools. I think that there are now tens of thousands of children and parents who who are benefiting from their creation. But I think that you may have been misinformed about the government backtracking on them, because Nicky Morgan, the Education Secretary, has, I know, just secured agreement across government for a new wave of free schools. I think the single biggest announcement of investment in free schools throughout the lifetime of this government. So Nicky has been a fantastic Education Secretary so far, and one of the areas in which she's been particularly strong is that she has outdone me in terms of managing to get from the Treasury money required for investment in these new schools.
What does Nicky Morgan bring to the job that you didn't?
She's a much better politician than me.
In what way? How come you're Chief Whip then?
Well, I think that I enjoy doing the job that I'm doing now, but I think I have to acknowledge that Nicky is, first of all, a fantastic communicator. Secondly, someone who's always calm under fire. Thirdly, no one in politics has a bad word for Nicky. Everyone on our party recognises that she's a committed Conservative heart and soul, but everyone in the other parties also recognises that she's an eminently reasonable person. I think if you are as successful as Nicky has been in introducing radical policies, and you remain on good terms with everyone in Parliament, well, you're a top politician.
OK, Michael Gove, you're with us for another 15 minutes. 0345 6060 973 is the number to call if you'd like to ask Michael a question. This is LBC, it's 5:46. News headlines with Simon Conway.
Gary Glitter has been convicted over a series of sex offences against young girls dating back to the 1970s and 80s. The former singer will be sentenced later this month. Detectives from Operation U-Tree have interviewed an 85-year-old man under caution in connection with historic sex offences. And Chief Whip Michael Gove has told LBC he'd like to see Boris Johnson in a top job in government as soon as possible if he's elected to Parliament in May's election. This is LBC. Your travel news is next.
Wow. That Jaguar is incredible. Look at me. I'm still shaking. I've never felt such adrenaline.
OK, sir, so you've seen the price. Now, would you like a test drive?
The Jaguar XF Sport Brake from only £339 a month plus VAT on Jaguar contract hire. If you think the price is good, wait until you drive the car. Search Jaguar offers. 36-month hire agreement, business users only. VAT may be payable at 20%. Initial payment £2,034 plus VAT. Offer ends 31st of March, subject to status UK only. Mileage and return conditions apply.
I'm Natalie Bailey in the LBC Travel Centre. As you've just been hearing, a 24-hour strike is causing severe disruption to London buses this afternoon. The majority of routes are either not running at all or are running a very reduced service. Around 40% of routes now have no service at all. And South West trains have delays of an hour for services into and out of Waterloo. It's following an investigation at Guildford. And on cross-country and Chiltern Railway trains, buses are replacing services between Leamington Spa and Banbury, adding an hour onto your journey. In London, on the south side of the Blackwall Tunnel, there are southbound delays between Blackwall Lane and the Sun in the Sands roundabout. That's because of a broken down car that's stuck in the inside lane. And the M25 in London is slow anti-clockwise from junctions 15 to 12, the M4 to the M3. In Sedlescombe in East Sussex, the A21 is closed in both directions between Crazy Lane and the A28 following a bad accident. Traffic's very slow moving on the surrounding roads. And on the M1 in Bedfordshire, 2 lanes are blocked southbound at junction 13 at Bedford because of an accident there. In Wales, on the M4, westbound traffic's queuing from junction 30 at Cardiff Gate up towards junction 33 at Cardiff West after an accident. Keeping you moving, your next travel update is in 15 minutes.
LBC Travel.
With GoToMeeting. Don't be late. Hold your meeting online from anywhere.
There are millions of small businesses in the UK, but in 2013, only 13,000 of them claimed back the cash that they were entitled to from the government. £46,000 on average, they say. If you've spent time and resources carrying out new product development or working on innovative solutions, you could reduce your tax bill or secure a cash injection of up to 25% of what you've spent. Ramona did.
I own a small business in Kent called Dr. Oats Limited. We recently created a new kind of healthy drink. I was told that Rift Research and Development could help me claim back on our innovation costs. I was a little apprehensive at first, but Rift dealt with everything professionally and efficiently, and we got back thousands for the time and costs we invested. I found the whole process so simple, and I would definitely recommend them.
To find out if your business is eligible, Visit innovationreward.co.uk today. That's innovationreward.co.uk.
A plasterer from Barking walks into a shop and buys a book on decorative icing. At the same moment, a fireman from Montrose buys a garden hose. A puppeteer from Pontyland picks up a rolling pin. And a dairy farmer from Croyd orders a soya latte. Every second, everyday Britons touch and pay with Visa Contactless. Pay quickly and easily with Visa Contactless today. Payments under £20, bank terms apply.
Mum! Mum! Yes! There are penguins in my room!
Nobody wants to wake up to a chilly home. So it's good to know that if your boiler breaks down, British Gas experts are here for a one-off repair or ongoing care. To find out more, call 0800 009 4620 or search British Gas. Conditions and exclusions apply.
If you're a small business owner, it's a fact that you could be missing out on £46,000 worth of help on average from the government. Put simply, the government want to reimburse companies who are spending time and resources innovating and developing their business. You'd be surprised what activities and costs qualify for this scheme. Rift are specialists in preparing claims for software development, design, engineering and manufacturing. Find out from Rift if your business is eligible. Visit innovationreward.co.uk. That's innovationreward.co.uk.
Academy Award nominated for Best Picture.
Those that have gone before us say no more.
Selma is a truly great film. Oyelowo is electrifying as Martin Luther King. 5 stars, says the Daily Telegraph.
What happens when a man stands up, says enough is enough?
It's outstanding, says the Times. The best film of the year. Selma, in cinemas February 6th.
Right now at Homebase, there's an extra 20% off all Karcher products on top of existing offers, like the K2 Compact Pressure Washer, now just $71.99. Homebase.
Iain Dale at Drive on LBC.
5:52 here on LBC. We're taking your questions to Michael Gove. You can watch us at lbc.co.uk. If you didn't watch us earlier, you'll have missed Michael's watch. You might have to replay that. I'm not going to go into it again. Alex is in Sidcup. Hello, Alex.
Good evening, Ian. Good evening, Mr. Gove.
Hi, Alex.
I think as an assistant head teacher, under your guidance as the Education Secretary, there was a rather hard line, and I'm just wondering, based on what you just said around Nicky Morgan and her popularity, whether her appointment was to soften, to make it a more approachable department, or a friendly department per se, or whether you're still as heavily involved as almost a puppet master. And if this isn't the case, then why are you still receiving, according to the reports on LBC on Monday, information on education and bits and pieces in your red box?
The first thing to say is I'm certainly nobody's puppet master. The second thing is that there was a story, I think, in The Independent on Sunday, and the LBC quite rightly and fairly runs through what's in every paper, doesn't make any comment, just says The Independent on Sunday are leading on this, the whatever are leading on that. And The Independent on Sunday story was that very, very rare thing, total rubbish. The truth is that, as the Cabinet Office and the Department for Education confirmed, that I don't get the Education Secretary's or anyone else's papers in my red box.
But you might have them sent to you discreetly by one of your former colleagues in the Department of Education, so you can do a little bit of backseat driving.
Yeah, the one thing I loved was the depiction of the depiction that when I was Secretary for Education...
Alex has bought into this, you can tell.
It's a conspiracy theory. When I was Education Secretary, everyone said, the Department for Education is full of people plotting against Michael Gove. Now I've gone. Now I'm gone. It's full of people plotting on my behalf. The truth is, it's full of professional civil servants who serve the Secretary of State, whoever he or she is.
But they were plotting against you at the beginning, weren't they? They didn't like you. They didn't like what you wanted to do.
Well, there were one or two people, but funnily enough, they went early on, and they tended to be people who had been put in place by the previous administration. I'll spare the blushes of the individuals concerned.
Oh, don't. No, but names.
No. But there were one or two. But throughout the time that I was Education Secretary, and in fact in my current job, I've been very lucky because there are brilliant civil servants who save me from myself and ensure that the government gets its business done. Well, as I say, there were one or two naughty boys and girls, but they've gone now. And as for the broader point, as Chief Whip, you have to take an interest in every government department, but the interest you take is making sure that they can get their legislation
so hand
through.
on heart, you're not getting papers from the Department of Education from any source whatsoever?
Absolutely not.
Alex, do you buy that?
Yeah, no, no, I don't at all.
I thought you were yes, no, but.
I've worked in education for long enough to know that, if you've had your finger in a pie, you still will have an interest in it. And it's interesting you're saying that when you were appointed, there were people who opposed you, and it went very quickly. That's not dissimilar to David Cameron's idea this week that we should now move failing head teachers on. And having been in a position where the school that I worked in was failing and we had a new head teacher come in, I hear the sort of, when people try and ring the changes, some people don't like it and they do move on.
Very true.
Right, let's move on to John, who's at the Oval. Hello, John.
Hi.
Hello, what would you like to ask?
Very quickly, I just wondered if Mr. Gove had any sympathy with Ed Miliband. If you read the right-wing press at the moment, if you read The Sun and The Times, it's almost relentless, the pursuit and the criticism of Ed Miliband, and it seems very personal in nature about his mannerisms and things like that. And I guess Mr. Gove will say you have to be broad-shouldered to be a member of Parliament, but I just wondered if there was an element of sympathy to the way he's being portrayed by the right-wing media.
I think John has a very good point. I think it's his point about broad shoulders is right. You do need to be ready for the rough and tumble of politics, and I think you also, in particular, if you're putting forward a radical programme, you need to fight hard for your ideas. But I do think that some of the personal attacks that Ed Miliband, like some other politicians, have had to endure have been unfair. I think it is totally irrelevant how he eats a sandwich, bacon or otherwise. I think his resemblance to Wallace and Gromit is totally irrelevant to his capacity to be a good Prime Minister. I also know that Ed Miliband is A, an intelligent person, and B, a sincere and thoughtful person, and I also know that in his personal dealings he's decent, honourable and truthful, and I think that those things, deserve to be recorded, alongside the fact that he's got some pretty disastrous ideas for the country, and I think that the election should be as much as possible about people's ideas and not about their eating habits.
Just on Ed Miliband, what do you think big business is more frightened of, a Labour government or Britain exiting the EU?
A Labour government.
Really?
Yes.
That's not what most big business people would say. That they are absolutely scared stiff, some of them, of Britain coming out of Europe, because they feel that one of their major markets may be closed to them.
It wouldn't be closed to them, but I think it's also the case that if you look at the range of business opinion, I don't think business opinion is that far away from what the majority of people in this country want, which is Britain in a reformed European Union. If you talk to business, they will say access to the markets of EU nations matters. But it's also the case that quite a lot of the regulation that they've had to suffer in the past has been generated by the EU. So they want to be, as William Hague once said, in Europe but not run by Europe.
Your colleague Sajid Javid has said he wouldn't shed a tear if Britain left the EU. What would your primary emotion be if we did?
My primary... David Cameron was once asked a similar question about how he would feel if the union broke up, the union between England and Scotland, and how he'd feel if about Britain's membership of the European Union. And he said the union between England and Scotland mattered to him 1,000,000 or 1,000 times more than Britain's relationship with the European Union. For me, the union between England and Scotland is an emotional tie. Our membership of the European Union is a business transaction.
So no emotion at all, really?
If it's in our interests, we should stay in. That's the important thing.
And if there was a referendum tomorrow?
There isn't going to be one.
Now, Sheila in Teddington has a text. She says, it's great that the government CSA inquiry is up and running. You're Chief Whip. Some whips in the past have been criticised for not handing over information. Would you, if you were handed information related to the CSA inquiry, and have you been handed any information?
I would hand it over. I have not been handed any information.
At all?
At all. But the Home Secretary quite rightly wrote to all government departments, and I said that all the information that we had at our disposal was at the inquiry's disposal.
So the Whip's Black Book, which, I don't know whether it exists or not. I think it probably does in some way, in some shape or form. You haven't been through the files from the 70s and 80s?
No, I haven't been. And I don't think, certainly in, recent memory, there haven't been things like black books. We don't record information other than people's name, address, telephone number, and whether or not they voted that day.
Really? OK, if you say so. Pauline is in Watford. Hello, Pauline.
Hello, good evening. Is the Tory party planning to do anything constructive about stopping aggressive legal tax avoidance by non-doms and such types?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we've introduced taxes for non-doms. It was one of the things that George Osborne said before the election that we would do. It's also the case that it was at the G8 summit in Northern Ireland that the Prime Minister led the drive for steps to deal with tax avoidance, tax evasion, I should say. And it's also been the case, I think, in the Conservative Party conference that the Prime Minister announced what was called a Google tax, but which was the Chancellor announced what was called a Google tax, which was a way of making sure that companies whose primary economic activity was in the UK paid their taxes appropriately.
Well, Michael Gove, I think that's the most wide-ranging phone-in we've ever done. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Very much so.
Good. We hope to have you back before the election.
Delighted.
Thank you very much indeed. We will let you go now. This is LBC. It's 6 o'clock.
On FM, online, on your mobile and on digital radio. Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 6 o'clock, Gary Glitter is facing a prison sentence after being found guilty of child sex offences against young girls. The ex-singer, whose real name is Paul Gadd, always denied the offences, which date back to the 70s and 80s. LBC